What's up, everybody? It's Kaz Danazan with Kraz Productions, and today we are joined by the infamous Jani. And how do I pronounce your last name? He's
Penttinen,
Penttinen.
Penttinen,
And
Penttinen. So it doesn't really, no one gets it right. So yeah, just call me Yanni.
okay.
Anytime I go pick up my kids from school, early, and I need to, tell the last name, it always takes quite a few tries for them to pronounce it. It's unfortunate because for me it's extremely easy, but for any English speaker, it's just impossible, so.
Well, hopefully I won't butcher it throughout this interview. Let me go ahead and ask you, if you will, give everybody who's watching a proper introduction. Tell them a little bit about yourself and your history as a developer.
Right. So I've made games since my teenage years. I made my first game in 1992, I think. It's been like 30 years. I think it was published 93. So next year will be my kind of like official 30-year anniversary as a game developer, like
Nice.
professionally. The first one I did, it was for Atari ST back in the day, and then I lived in Finland, and in Finland you didn't have too many game developers at the time. I think we had two developers who had actually publishing contracts. We had Housemarque and we had Remedy, and so I worked at Remedy for a while, and then I worked at Housemarque. And those two, once I've been through those, then there was no one else to go to. So then I moved over to the US. I joined Westwood Studios, worked on a Command and Conquer Renegade and Earth and Beyond, and a bunch of other games for them, for Westwood Studios and EA. So went went from small up and coming studios in Finland, which these days are huge, and to work for Westwood, which back in the day was like one of the top developers in the world. So that was good career move in a way. I met a lot of really cool people. I learned a lot at Westwood. Basically, I got to work with the people who made games that I had been playing when I was growing up. Like, the Westwood had made a ton of games that I had, grown up with, and then they still had the same people working there. So I joined as this junior guy with the veterans that I looked up to. So it was a very, very good learning experience. And yeah, so I've done a lot in my career. These days, I work as an indie on my own studio, Utopos Games, and I've also joined. I'm a CTO in a new gaming startup that is still sort of under wraps, called Rollverse. So I keep myself busy with a lot of pretty cool things.
So, if you don't mind me asking real quick, what would you say is the most, and this is going to be a bit of a strong word, but what is the most prolific game that you've worked on in the past 30 years? Like, what's something that's like special to you that you've worked on?
Well, I'd say CNC Renegade is a big one. I mean, it's unfortunately it was delayed quite a bit. So at some point it would have been technically really really amazing. By the time it came out, it was already a little bit outdated.
Right.
So that was something that I really enjoyed, especially the multiplayer mode in CNC Renegade was really ahead of its time, and it was really fun. It was an amazing game. Um, I uh, I'd say that's probably like the biggest. I've also worked on like some of the Medal of Honor games and Lord of the Rings RTS and CNC Generals, games that are maybe more well known and sold a lot more units. But yeah, like Renegade for me is like the closest to my heart.
Right. You mentioned Medal of Honor, and I don't want to deviate at all, but Tony Barnes also worked on Medal of Honor. Have you guys, I understand you guys have worked together in the past before. What was that like?
No, actually, we didn't work at EA at the same time. We
Oh,
kind of our times. I left EA, I think, a little bit before he did his thing. I'm not quite sure of the timelines, but he was not in the same team where I was. So no, so we actually never worked together on a project. We are good friends, and we share a lot of information. We talk a lot. talked about how fun it would be to make a game together, like, you know, do a joint project. But we've never had a chance to work yet together.
Well, I apologize. I should have fact checked that. But I mean, it's interesting to be able to hear you talk about some of these projects that you've been on. I mean, I've never developed a game before. I've never worked on a video game, but I definitely have a wide roster of games that I've enjoyed, and so it's something that's kind of personal to me as it is for any other gamer. But going back to one of the statements you made earlier at the beginning of this interview, you mentioned that you started working in the early, what was it, the early 90s for Atari, or was it like late
Yeah.
80s? I can't remember the exact time frame.
So it was very nice. Like yeah, I think I got my first ST like maybe 98, like 89 or something like that. And so then I learned how to do programming. I was doing all these demos and stuff like that.
Right.
And so 92, I started working on my first game, and 93 that was released.
That was Utopos, correct?
Yeah, that was
So not to compare, of course, but you did actually do an update for Utopos that was released on the Atari VCS last year. It was, I believe it's still in early access. Is there still going to be an update to that, or?
yeah. So it's early access in Steam and for VCS, and I do plan on finalizing it. And like next year is the 30th anniversary of the release of the original, so that would be probably a good time to release it. The It's actually had a lot of interest to it, especially on Steam, and I think it would do really well. It's sort of like a lot of people compare the gameplay experience as like the original Quake multiplayer. Some, you know, the feeling is there, and it's simple enough to you know, jump on, even if you are more like a newer gamer that didn't get to play those old games back in the day. But still, yeah, it works really well as a multiplayer. But the thing is, when you have a multiplayer, it's kind of like very resource intensive to release a game like that, because you need a lot of like moderation. One of the reasons it's pushed back is because we had a bunch of people, not bunch, but a few people from the VCS scene that were like harassing the games quite a bit, and I just didn't have the time or the resources to properly manage the games.
Right.
So I had to like kind of scale that down and wait until like a proper moment when, you know, it'll be released and I will have like a proper moderation in place. People will need to have like ability to block out the players that they don't want. You know, if there's somebody who keeps coming to games and kind of ruining them intentionally, you should be able to ban them so that they cannot join the games that you run and all that. And, you know, all those tools were missing because that was my first multiplayer game that I've made. So yeah, that was a learning experience, and I do want to complete it, but there's reasons why it's been pushed back quite a bit. I've done other things. I haven't not done anything. You know, I have been working on other games, and as you may know, I had this period where, you know, I got COVID and I was in a hospital for a while, and spent a few months not able to work at all. So that's another reason that my schedules were kind of messed up, and I had to basically delay stuff that was harder to do, like you told us.
Well, I remember when it first launched, there was a lot of people that were like really going nuts about it. It's a great game. It's fun. In fact, I believe I was we did a video call at one point when it first launched to troubleshoot something with the controller. Was it relay? I think is the word. I think there was lag. I don't remember the context of that, but I remember when it launched. I remember when it launched, there were so many people trying to get together and play it, right? And so there were multiple servers. And now today, obviously, you know, there's not too many people that are kind of playing it on the VCS side. That is. But I've had a few people ask, you know, hey, you want to play Utopos? You want to play Utopos? So there's still people that definitely want it, you know. In regards
Yeah.
to an update, I mean, and if you're unable to talk about it, that's perfectly fine. But just curious, in regards to an update, when do you think we? I am so sorry, my cat. Stop. I'm so sorry. And
It's okay.
in regards to an
Okay, so
continue. Sorry.
update for Utopus. Yeah, so I have an updated version that runs supports 10 players, and you know, up from the 4 that the currently released version has. It has new new levels. It has half finished single player mode. One of the things that is important for it is that there has to be some sort of a way to play by yourself
Yeah.
when the community is kind of small and that they're not always enough players. So if you're not able to launch a multiplayer session because no one is around, if you can still play single player, then you won't feel like that disappointed. And then as a result, more people will be playing, and then there will be opportunities to get those multiplayer games going as well. And another thing that is going to be in the next version is a thing called Utopos Hour, which right now the plan is that it's going to happen every 8 hours. There will be the game will basically say the next Utopos Hour happens in 5 hours, 4 hours, whatever. There's a countdown, and that's when everybody will go online and play multiplayer. Because it's been kind of difficult for people to find matches because we have players all over the world, and you never know when other people are going to be around. And
Right.
if somebody was around just 5 minutes ago and now you join, they already left. You guys could have had fun playing, but you never matched. So that's why I was thinking of making this kind of thing where it'll basically the game will facilitate when is the next opportunity when for sure everybody is going to be online. So I think that should solve a lot of matchmaking issues, and there should be, in hopefully opportunities to play multiplayer when you want to, and then at other times, if nobody's around, you can at least play single player. Single player being sort of like if you think like Tekken or whatever, that kind of like a fighting game where you will be matching against opponents,
Mhm.
and you win, you proceed on and so on. So yeah, I think it's going to be quite fun. It's just some more work left before I can actually release it, but hopefully by the time it turns 30 years old, I will be able to launch it like next year.
So before we hopped into this interview, I had actually texted you and I said that I was playing through Guntech. I didn't realize that I had lost my data on the game, so I was replaying through some of the earlier levels, and it's incredible how different it is now compared to when it first launched on the Atari VCS. Which, by the way, if I may not be right on these numbers, but I believe Guntech is the most sold game on the VCS store. Um, could you confirm like numbers, like how many people have bought the game for the VCS, or is that like kind of like a thing to talk about?
It's probably not public, but I mean, and I can't even comment on the whether or not it's the most sold because only Atari knows that. I know that early on
Mhm.
it was one of the launch titles, and at some point it had the highest percentage of highest penetration, basically highest percentage of people who bought it.
Mhm.
So, but ever since then, Atari has released some of their own games on their own IP. I would definitely expect that those have sold more.
Right.
Uh, so I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know, but it's done well on the VCS, and I'm happy about that. And the first version that released that was for the launch, so I had to kind of rush it um, to get it out. So it only had about half of the levels that there are now,
Right.
and so there was like it was a fully functional game, but some of the content was missing.
I remember.
So that's why it's I've done several updates to it to kind of complete the experience.
I don't remember what level it was. There was a level in the original version of Guntech before the major update that you sent out, and you kind of have this like barrier of like metallic, whatever these, like, I guess, containers that kind of like accustomate for the wall, right? And there was a
Yeah,
section there where you could actually see like the silhouette of a bird or a dragon or something.
yeah.
And I remember finding that thinking, oh my God, that's so cool, because it was kind of like a hint that there's these like really cool bosses and creatures that are going to be there at some point. So I mean, I'm actually very excited to replay through this and try to get to those points, because seeing how it is now versus how when it first launched, like you said, you kind of had to rush it out. It's significantly different, better in my opinion. Um, Actually, me and my girlfriend, we played it the other day. We did co-op. She's not a big fan of shooters, but I am, right? And so we didn't do it for very long, but the point of the matter is she actually enjoyed it for somebody who doesn't enjoy shooters, right? So that speaks volumes for the level of the game, or the design of the game, that somebody who's not a fan enjoyed it, you know. But in
That's good. That's good.
but in
Was she playing a sidekick?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, the sidekick was designed for for my kids to play with me together, like so that it's my youngest when that was released, she was like very young. She's now 7, but back then she was like 5 years old. So it was hard for her to play a shooter, like twin stick shooter would be like very difficult. So I designed it so that there is this sidekick mode where you can choose the sidekicks to be, for example, that they won't die. It's the easy version of the sidekick, unlimited lives and all that. So the idea was that people who are not necessarily very fans of these kind of games can still join in and enjoy while the main player is sort of controlling the action.
right.
I'm glad to hear if that works for not just for the kids but also adults.
I will say this, and I haven't played it since the update, other than today and the other day. I've noticed that the leaderboards on the VCS side, there are some scores that say, it has the Atari logo, then the Switch controller logo, and the Xbox logo. So obviously, it's on other consoles. So the question that I want to ask is, how has reception been on other consoles since they've hit?
Yeah, so it's out on Xbox, and it's going to be released for Switch, Nintendo Switch on January 2.
Huh.
It's currently out only in Japan and Korea,
Okay.
but it will be out worldwide January 2. So and the people you see in leaderboards right now with the Nintendo logo are mostly Nintendo's own testers.
Okay. That
They're
makes
like
sense now.
they're like really good players. They're like, I was asking if I need to help them because they wanted to like see what happens if you get to the top of the leaderboards and all that. And I was like, hey, do I need to help you guys out? Do I need to clear out the leaderboard or something like that? They're like, yeah, fine, whatever. We'll just play it. And they are really good. Anyways, the reception so far, I only know about the Xbox because the Nintendo release is pending.
Right.
Xbox, it's been one of the better reviewed games on Xbox, like indie games. It's got 81 out of 100 score. It has like a 4.2 stars on the actual like the gamer reviews, and so 81 is the journalist, like the professional reviews, and 4.2 out of 5 stars the player reviews, which when you look at the games that have been reviewed in for Xbox, for especially indie games, like almost no one get that high. So it's been very well received. It got some game of the month awards and stuff like that when it was released. So I'm happy with the reception because it is a niche game. It is like it's an old retro game, and it's kind of funny that I'm remaking something that people like me used to play back in the day, but a lot of people are saying like how unique idea that is. Like, oh, I've never seen anything like this before. Like
Them dark
it's a generational thing.
Well, I'm actually very happy to hear that Guntech is booming. It I had a lot of fun with it when it first launched. So going back and revisiting something that's completely, different compared to when it first launched is also kind of exciting. But I know that Utopos and Guntech aren't the only games that you have out, or are working on, so to speak. And I was actually looking through your website and I saw something for, I think it's pronounced Ribo. It's like a robot game. Is that still happening, or is
Yep.
it out, or?
It is happening, and it should be coming out next year. I have a team of developers who are developing it. It's a big team, like 20 people. Hold on, there's somebody at the door. I'll be right back. Sorry.
We got the good stuff. I should put like a Jeopardy music over this, just like doo, doo, doo.
I'm sorry about that.
It's quite all right. I don't know if you heard me talking or whatever, but I was basically talking to myself, and I was like, you know what, this would be the perfect time to play some Jeopardy music, where while I just wait and just like, twiddle my thumbs or whatever. But
All
get,
right, all right.
getting back into it, you said you had 20 developers who were helping to produce this game. Will it also be coming to the VCS, or is this going to be ultimately on some of the more powerful consoles?
Yeah, I don't know VCS.
Oh,
It's yeah, and I'm not developing it. I'm just consulting. I sold the IP, the didn't sell the IP, but licensed the IP to another developer who is working to finish that. And yeah, it's a big thing, but it's up to their control right now. So
I got you.
I VCS is, yeah, it's too small.
So,
It's not about the power of the console. It's about the size of the market. And yeah, when you have like 20 people working on something, that's not a VCS type of market, unfortunately.
fair enough. And I mean, I'm sure as if you've already figured out that, I'm kind of an advocate for the console. I'm a big fan of it. I support it and so on. So really it comes down to trying to figure out like, what all else is going to be available, what's coming and so on. So I guess a follow-up question to that would be, do you plan to produce anything else for the VCS, or is that something you're kind of getting out of for now, or you feel comfortable talking about it?
Yeah, I have a project that I think like would be pretty good. Like there's a racing game that is sort of like based on the Guntech world, like rocket ship racing game that I have. Like I think it'll work very well on a VCS. Right now I have it up and running on VCS. It's just a matter of kind of wait and see what Atari is going to do with it. They seem to, at least based on their talks on the Discord, they seem to be putting some effort into supporting the console.
Right.
So with that, I think it would make sense to do this game for release this game for VCS as well. It'll I basically have this platform now that I can make games like fairly easy ports for Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and Steam and VCS. So uh, well, once I got to the point where it's I can just like change the define in the code and recompile it to another platform, and I've already been through the game has. I have one game that has passed on all these marketplaces.
Right.
Then it becomes like even if the VCS doesn't produce that many sales, hold on, hold on, hold on. Kids are out of school this week, and
It's okay. It's the holidays. No worries, man.
it's noise management basically. But yeah. So I have this the code base basically that I developed for Guntech and Utopos, and now I'm building other games on that. And so even if VCS market is not the biggest, it still I generate sales there, and it's pretty easy to get games running on that. What I do right now is I use VCS usually as the first platform I develop on. That's the simplest, most straightforward platform to work on. If I get it running well on that, it pretty much runs well on others as well.
Right.
Nintendo Switch is a little less powerful, but then I just need to do some tweaks to get it running smoothly there as well. But then like going to Xbox, they are more powerful, so it's like I can just add a little eye candy there and I'm done. If I went like Xbox first, it would be a lot more work to import it down to Switch and VCS.
So would you say
So,
would you say the VCS is sort of like a development tool for you, or?
for now at least, yeah. It's kind of reminds me of the old Atari ST. Back in the day, Atari ST and Amiga, like ST was like super simple, straightforward to develop for because it didn't have any special processors like Bleeder or anything like that. So I like doing VCS first. It's makes development easier. It's still a game console, so for now at least I'm using that as the sort of like the development environment. And
If you don't mind me asking one more question, then we'll get out of the whole VCS topic. But Um, what would you say? Actually, it's two questions. It's a two part. What would you say developing for the Atari VCS is for you? Like what it like how has it helped you, or how has it actually, you know what? Let's not ask that question. I think the better question is when when developing for the Atari VCS and learning about its specs and how everything, runs through it. What has your experience with the console been? Has it been good? Has it been great? Has it been, beneficial to you outside of just using it as like a development tool? Is it misunderstood, basically?
It's well, I mean, it's easy. It's basically like developing for Linux. It's there's nothing really complicated about it. The biggest issues in there is that the Atari is lacking like an API
Mm,
that would give me like the player name and stuff like that. I built a little hack into the game where it's uh, like I'm able to extract the name of the player on a VCS without an official API, and I've communicated with Atari how I do that, and I hope that they will put an official support for that, because it's one of the elements you need in games like Utopos, where you have multiple players.
mm,
If you allow players to input their names, you'll see some dirty words. That's the automatic thing that happens. But if they have to use the username that they have on a console, you don't really get that too much. So
okay.
that's and that's like for example, the leaderboards. Nintendo was very strict about like that's considered user generated content,
Hmm.
and they are like afraid of what will you see on the leaderboards.
Right.
So when I don't have the ability right now for people to enter their own names, so no one can kind of do anything funny there. I just use the Xbox gamer tag and the Nintendo username, and the VCS username as well.
Mm.
You get cleaner results, and then they were like, fine, okay, this is approved. But anytime you do user generated content, when people could be entering something funny there, it goes into a review, and it's kind of hard to pass. And in the worst case, you're just not allowed to do that.
Right.
And so Atari lacks those kind of features. So hopefully they will add those at some point.
Okay. So, with developing for Xbox, what has your experience with that been like?
Yeah, it's been good. I like it. It's pretty straightforward. I have the dev kits for Series and One, and the Series X is like ridiculously powerful. There's like you can do a lot with it, and there is a little bit of obviously challenge there. You obviously want to provide a good user experience and for all the consoles, but then you want the Series X version to look like it is a next gen console game.
Right.
And fortunately, if you look at reviews on Xbox Series X for Guntech too, people say it looks great. It's fantastic. I love the art and all that. So I think I've met the bar where they don't feel it's port from some older consoles. It actually, I do a lot of extra on that console.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a great easy console to develop, and the biggest challenge there, I guess, is it's nothing to do with the Xbox itself, but it's the fact that the generational gap between consoles is it's huge. Like the latest generation, they're just so much more powerful than the Nintendo Switch and Atari VCS and the like.
So we're coming up on the 6 minute mark. Our time is running out here. I want to go ahead and fit in two questions here. The first question being, for anybody who's watching this, who maybe follows your history and follows you as an individual, as a developer, as a businessman, what advice would you give them if maybe they're feeling a little discouraged about development or putting what they want out on these consoles? What's some advice you would give them?
Well, it's hard. Like it's very hard. It's very tough business to be in. I'm fortunate that I've had a long career behind me, so I was able to be financially in a position where I can take my time to do these games, and I have a lot of connections in the industry, so
Mhm.
I'm you know fairly easily able to get the dev kits on whatever I want to. And so as somebody who is starting right now, I guess probably Nintendo Switch is easiest console to get, easiest dev kit to get, because You don't even need to have a company. You can just, as an individual, go into the website and start a dev account. So that's but then all the consoles have their own little quirks.
Right.
I mean, if see, like let's say if you just want to have a game out, Atari VCS is probably the easiest, because all you need to do is grab Unity, set Linux as your dev environment, make a game, build it for Linux, and if it runs, then you get a game, you get a console game. It is the most straightforward console to develop for. The other consoles, I'd say it was very quick to get the game running on Nintendo Switch, but then it took me a long time to get through the Nintendo approval process, because there's a lot of requirements you need to meet, and there's stuff that you need to do that requires reading through a ton of manuals and all that. It's nothing to do with the game itself. It's just all kind of you need to follow their guidelines. So those are not lightweight for as a first game. If you just want to get a game out somewhere, then it's easy to get started. It's easy to get the dev kit, but then to actually publish a game there takes quite a lot.
So again, I don't want to take up too much more of your time here. So for anybody watching, where can they find you? Go ahead and drop like your handle, your website, where they can find you online, where they can purchase your products, your merchandise, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, there's utoposgames.com, and that's where I have links to the various stores where the games available and all the games are available, and that's where I'll be posting all the new games as well. And you also find my contact information there. And obviously there's Utopos Games on Discord as well, and we have Twitter, Facebook, all that. So just searching for Utopos Games on any platform should be enough.
Well, Jani, I just want to say personally, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to at least talk to you. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. You are a very straightforward guy. I want to give you that right now. You're a very straightforward guy, and I enjoy talking with you. So if you're ever open to it again in the future, I'd love to have you back for another interview. But otherwise, thank you so much thank you so much for letting us have you on here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Everybody, I've been Kaz Denizan with Crass Productions with Jani. Can't pronounce the last name.
Penttinen.
Penttinen. Okay.
Penttinen.
Jani Penttinen. This has been Jani Penttinen, and I've been Kaz Denizan with Crass Productions for Atari Dev Space. Thank you guys for watching.